Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to stick to Sweden. We're going to head a little bit north of me here in Skåne, in the very south of the country, to Halland county, and we're having a look at another beer from a brewery that I was very impressed with last time round. And I think these guys are a very highly regarded brewery in terms of the quality of their beer, but they're just not very well known about, to be honest. So that was one of the cool things. This brewery was recommended to me by a subscriber, and that's one of the great things about doing this channel. You guys that are watching are always full of very useful information, so do keep your recommendations coming. For this review then, we are going to return to Wapnö Gårdbryggeri, and we're having a taste of their Bjällra IPA, which comes in at 6% ABV, and just looking at the bottle, this is another one of these kind of hazy New England type IPAs. So very curious to see how this one turns out. The last beer, as I said, was the Alna double IPA, and that was an absolute monster of a beer. And just before I filmed this one, I was recommended the New England IPA El Dorado and the Idaho 7. Unfortunately though, when I tried to order them, they weren't available, and so I ordered this one instead because I know this is meant to be quite a nice beer, and I thought it's about time I did another review of a Wapnö beer. So hopefully you guys enjoy my take on this one as well. I do want to try the stout too, because, you know, as I always say, when you try something from a brewery, you want something from the dark end of the spectrum and something from the light end of the spectrum to get an idea of what they're all about. But that one is not available through Systembolaget at all, as far as I can gather, but you will definitely be seeing more reviews from this brewery at some point in the fairly near future. So yeah, let's see how we get on with this one then. So as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Wapnö Gårdbryggeri before. Hopefully I can add some more at some point in the fairly near future. There's all the usual social media down there as well. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Swedish beers that I've reviewed for you. That's constantly being added to, and as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. If it wasn't for you guys commenting, I probably would never have discovered this brewery, so definitely keep the recommendations coming. So on to my brewery notes then for this one. So as I mentioned to you earlier, Wapnö can be found just to the north of Halmstad in Halland county. It's in the southern part of the county, but it's an estate that dates back to the 14th century, and the brewery itself was opened back in 2016, so just about 4 years old. But the first mention of this estate goes back to the year 1379 and the Wapnö Vadstena monastery, and at one stage it was owned by Peter Ribbing, who was the grandson of Saint Birgitta. But later it was taken over by the crown, the Swedish king basically, in 1410 after the owner Abraham Brodesen Bad was sentenced to death, before it was then in turn passed back to his widow in 1419. In the 16th century it belongs to the Norwegian family Urup and then to the Beck family before passing into the hands of Gustav Otto Stenbock in 1661, who was the first Swedish owner since the monastery had owned the estate. But his son Magnus took over and ran the estate until his death in 1717. So in 1741, George Bogislaus Stale, to pronounce it correctly, who was a field marshal and county governor of Kalmar, he bought part of Wapnö and founded the Kosta Glassworks along with Småland county governor Anders Koskul, and together they bought the rest of the estate, and it has stayed in the ownership of the same family since then, with the current CEO being Lennart Bengtsson. On the site today there's a castle dating from the 18th century, and they also have an ancient runestone which is one of the few in Halland county, and today Wapnö owns the historical site and they employ around 85 different people. On site there's a dairy, there's the brewery, a farm shop, a hotel, a restaurant, and the farm itself has around 2,500 hectares of land and 450 hectares of forest, and the farm produces meat, milk, various different crops, and they also have a biogas plant to run all of their operations, and because of that they've won many different awards for for their environmental activities. They're meant to be a very kind of green or environmentally friendly brewery, I should say. I can't speak English tonight, it's a little bit annoying, but yeah, it's as I say, it's a brewery that's got a bit of a reputation for doing some very interesting things, and as I said, the quality of the beer in my experience is pretty damn good as well. So hopefully I can get up there at some point and take a little look at it. I was in Halmstad very briefly on the way home from Gothenburg last time, so hopefully I can get up there again at some point and just take a little look around. It's not all that far away actually, it's only about an hour and a bit on the train if memory serves me correctly, so something that I will definitely look into at some point fairly soon. But yeah, a really interesting brewery this one, new in the grand scheme of the estate, but quite cool to see that one of the famous old estates in Sweden is producing some very, very nice beer. In some ways it reminds me of Fine Ales back home in Scotland actually, and I need to make sure I review one of their beers when I get back home as well. They're a very nice brewery actually. So yeah, that's all you really need to know about Wapnö Gårdbryggeri just now. If you ever see the word gourd on a beer from Norway, Sweden, Denmark, then you always know it's going to come either from an estate or from a farm or whatever. That tends to be the case. Gårds from here in Sweden again, RampantLionReviews Gårdbryggeri here in Skåne, Untappd Gårdbryggeri over in Denmark as well on Öland. So yeah, but yeah, that's all you need to know. Check out the brewery website as always. You can see all the different things for the estate as well. If you want to follow them on Facebook and Instagram, that will keep you up to date with all the latest goings on, and of course there is more information on all the different beers there too. So yeah, there you can see the artwork of this one. The red W of course is the symbol of Wapnö Gårdbryggeri, and you can see that is also on the bottle cap as well. So one of the other interesting things, it tells you a bit on the side here about their where they get their energy from, but it also talks a little bit about how they make their own malts for their beers too, and that you get basically exclusive flavours out of these. So these beers are pretty unique and things like that. So it says Odling, Maltning and Bryggeri for Wapnö Gård. So yeah, you know, basically born, aged and brewed in Wapnö Gård, or Maltning. So Maltning, is that just as in maltery? I can't remember. That's one of the pieces of vocabulary that I'm not quite sure about with Swedish, yes. But this one says on the back how beer should taste. So yeah, pretty cool as I said. The artwork on this one is very similar to what was there for the Alna, and I think all of the beers are pretty much like this in terms of artwork. But yeah, let's get this guy out and we will get on with the tasting. And I'm really curious to see how this one turns out, because the Alna was pretty damn awesome, I have to say. But I will say, as soon as you open this beer up, you get a hell of a lot of nice juicy fruit out of this one. Probably at some point these guys, I would suspect, they might start growing their own hops and things, because they've probably, well, I say probably, they've definitely got some land that they'd be able to do that. It's just a case of whether the temperatures and things are right, because they are starting to produce hops here in Skåne, which is great. I'm not sure if maybe that is a little bit too far north to do it though. Some of you guys that are a bit more into your plant biology and things might be able to tell me that. I was a chemist and physicist, and yeah, wasn't that good at biology. But yeah, as you can see with this one's poured a lovely pale kind of golden straw colour. This one, it is a little bit like kind of mango juice or peach juice or something like this. It's a typical appearance for one of these kind of hazy New England type IPAs. You can see there was a head on this one that was about half a finger, quite a bumpy but perfect white head. One or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass. You can see a few little ones just heading up towards the bottom of that head there, but you know, overall it looks pretty nice, and to be honest there's nothing overly surprising about this beer in terms of its appearance when you consider what style it is. It does just say IPA on the bottle, but I mean, this is, you know, a hazy New England IPA, there's not much doubt about that, or in Sweden we can call it a Swedish West Coast IPA perhaps. But yeah, let's have a little look at the aroma then and see how we get on. Ooh, it smells quite nice actually. So yeah, with this one, for me, you could definitely pick up a little bit of the kind of passion fruity notes out of this. I mean, if they've got a single hopped beer that's called Idaho 7, I've got a feeling they might have some of that in here. Passion fruit, you can get that from a few hops. Idaho 7, Simcoe, Galaxy these days as well. There's a couple from New Zealand like Racal and things like that, but I'm guessing it would either be Galaxy or Idaho 7 that's most likely in this one. A little bit of mango in there as well, but it's also got a kind of lemon limey note for me. I mean, maybe there could be a bit of Centennial or Equinaut in here. It could, if it's lime, it could also be Motueka from New Zealand, but I think that's a bit less likely. But yeah, the aroma on this one for me, the fruitiness, it's got a little bit of the pungency you'd expect of like passion fruit, because I've always found that passion fruit and grapefruit are kind of stronger, more pungent fruits, but it's got some lighter mango-y notes, and it's got a little bit of that kind of lemon and limey zest, to be honest. So that's really quite interesting, to be honest. I really like how that goes together. So yeah, quite a juicy, smooth fruitiness that you get out of this one. That's quite nice. It's obviously not quite as big as the Alma was. The Alma was a very pungent beer from what I remember, but this one comes across as a little bit lighter and a little bit more kind of wet and juicy. On the green side of the hops for me, it's definitely leaning more towards the grassy end of the spectrum. There is a little bit of the floral character in there, but mainly it's a little bit grassy. There's a teeny hint of earthiness, but as I say, mainly grassy with this beer. On the malty side of things, you can definitely smell the wheat. There's a little bit of that kind of wheaty astringency to the beer. A little bit of a biscuity sweetness to it also, but you can pick up a few kind of grainy sort of things, and I'm guessing that perhaps the malts that these guys are making are organic, and I've always found that organic malts, they just smell a little bit more kind of grainy, to be honest. There's just a little bit of that graininess to them. They can often give you a little bit of a difference in the mouthfeel as well, which is also quite interesting. So bear that in mind when you have a smell of this beer. I think it's quite interesting, but I'm not sure. It isn't marked. I might be talking rubbish by saying that it's organic. It is a green friendly brewery, but I'm not quite sure if they are organic. But yeah, because it doesn't have bio, the bio symbol on it, or the European Union's organic symbol. Actually, that's an interesting point. So maybe I've told you rubbish when I said about it being organic, but I mean, main question is whether it's a good beer or not. But as I say, we'll find that out in a second. If you want to take a little bit of time and enjoy the aroma of this, it is pretty damn nice. So let's have a little look at this one then and see how we go on. This one is the Bjällra, a 6.0% IPA from Wapnö Gårdbryggeri, just outside of Halmstad in Halland County here in Sweden. Let's get stuck in. Slanja, skål. Yeah, that's really pretty nice actually. Thumbs up to these guys once again. So one of the things I just realised I forgot to mention is that the name Bjällra, it's like a type of bell. It's like the kind of bells you get in the church that have got the little kind of round part cut out of them at the bottom. That's what where the name of this beer comes from. But first impression of this beer is that it's a little bit more bitter than I remember Alna being, and that's kind of interesting because I remember Alna having a good bit of pungency and stuff to it. It was very, it was really quite big and bitey. But I think I got it when the one that I had was very, very fresh. This one does taste as if it's pretty damn fresh as well. But this one to me just feels a little bit kind of lighter and more easy going. It's almost just like the little brother, if you like, of the Alna, which is quite nice. That's not a bad thing at all, actually. So yeah, let's try and break this one down then. So in the middle of your palate, you can feel there is a nice little bit of that kind of smooth, white bready, wheaty kind of thing. That blankets the middle of your tongue. As you go further into the aftertaste, the beer gets a little bit more kind of grainy. You can feel the middle of your palate dries out a little bit. If you go to the front corners of your palate and move in, you might detect a little bit of a kind of woody note to this one. So yeah, I quite like that about this. It is a little bit lighter in the malt base. I remember that the Alna had a good bit of a wheat. It had a big wheaty presence to it, and also a little bit of creaminess, which was quite nice. But I like how this one goes together as well. This one's definitely a bit more light and a bit more sessionable, but the green side of the hops are still pretty pungent in this one. I like that about it. I mean, this beer, I'm not sure exactly how fresh this one is, but I've always felt that one of the things you need to watch with New England IPAs is you need to let them sit a little bit, because otherwise all you're going to get out of them is the kind of green hop burn. And I've not found, I never found that so much with the West Coast IPAs, but I feel with the New Englands and hazy ones that can be a little bit of a problem. But I think this beer is just about to get into its its sort of good period, if that makes sense. I think it might be just a little teeny touch fresh, but as it stands it's still pretty good. So, malt base, like I say, is fairly kind of straightforward. As the further we go into the aftertaste, you do get more of those grainy aspects out of it, but it does to some degree have a little bit of crispness to it as well. I wouldn't be surprised if it's a little bit kind of if it has a little bit of Pilsner malt in it as well to give it that drinkability, because you do get that bit of crispness towards the back of the palate, which is a kind of telltale sign. But some of the grainy notes in this are quite interesting, and that will be their own malts, I'm sure. It's almost like a little bit like a bread crusty type flavour you get out of this. It's just got that little bit of fired bread crusty dryness to it, and that's quite an interesting point actually. It's quite minimal, but it just adds a little bit of complexity to the beer. On the hoppy side of things then, back corners of the palate, there's a little bit of earthiness there. As you move further forward along the sides of the tongue, it smoothens out a little bit. You reach the front corners of the palate, there's quite a bit of a big kind of spicy floral aromatic note, and then around the very front curve of the palate it's just a little bit lighter and more grassy. Behind the front curve of the tongue, that's where you get that nice oily bubble where those juicy fruity esters are coming out of the beer. And for me, this one, it kind of reflects the aroma quite well, to be honest with you. Yeah, it pretty much is very similar to what you would get from the aroma. So you move towards the back of that oily bubble, there is a little bit of that more potent, pungent kind of passion fruity thing, and as you move further forward from it, that does spread forward a little bit. There's maybe a teeny wee bit of like a mango or something there, but for me this beer is pretty strong in its passion fruity notes. It maybe has a little bit of pineapple or something with it towards the front of the palate, but you've got, if you move right to that front edge of the tongue, it's almost, I think I was maybe wrong to say it was kind of lemon and limey. It's a little bit, there maybe is a little bit of lime in there, but it's kind of, it's more along the lines of like a kind of gooseberry or lychee type thing, a very, very light, airy kind of tropical fruit. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if this is Idaho 7 that's in here, because I know that gives you the passion fruit, but it also gives you a little bit of a kind of pineapple-y and lighter tropical note. So yeah, that's kind of an interesting point about this, but I do suspect there's maybe more than one hop at play in here. If I was betting, I would say that it's maybe Citra and Idaho 7 that's in this one. It could be other things. There's lots of other hops you can use that will give you similar flavours right enough, but as it stands it's a very nice beer. I mean, it could actually be, it could of course be Idaho 7 and El Dorado. I remember El Dorado's another one that can give you these big passion fruity notes, and it's, when you think about it, pardon me, when they have two single IPAs using those hops, it might well be those that's kind of being combined in here. That would make sense, to be honest. But yeah, you get really nice kind of light tropical flavours out of this with the fruit. So a bit of stronger passion fruit towards the back. It smoothens out a little bit as you come further forward to give you an almost slightly pineapple-y flavour. There could be a little bit of mango or something in there, which might suggest Citra. But then on the front edge of the tongue, bit limey, but I think a little bit of a kind of gooseberry, almost lychee-like flavour. But overall, a really solid New England IPA, and I can see why people are sort of raving about this brewery a little bit. Bit of a shame that it's not more well known, to be honest with you. In terms of the mouthfeel then, yeah, this one, I find this quite a light-bodied beer, to be honest with you. It's the top end of light-bodied, bottom end of mid-bodied. Carbonation, it's got a degree of crispness to it in this one. Like I said, there's a wee bit of that Pilsner malty quality in the middle of the palate, but overall I'd say the beer has a bit of wetness to it, a bit of crispness, and it has a wee bit of the smoothness. It gets a little bit drier and more grainy the further you go into the aftertaste, I think. Good little bit of hoppy bitterness. I think we're talking at least 40 IBUs with this one. I don't know if it's quite 50, but it's got a little bit more hop kick to it than your kind of standard New England IPA these days. Either that or it's just very, very fresh. Malt base, like I said, it's got a bit of smoothness to it in the beginning, but it gets a little bit drier and more grainy the further you go into the aftertaste. A bit crisp. I suspect some Pilsner malt in there, and with the fruits, it gets a little bit wetter the further you go into the aftertaste, but in the beginning it's got quite a pungent and almost slightly drying fruit quality to it, which is interesting. But overall, another very, very good beer from Wapnö Gårdbryggeri, and I definitely want to try the El Dorado and the Idaho 7. I'd love to try the stout as well, but like I say, that's not available through Systembolaget, so I'll need to find some other way of getting a hold of that one. So yeah, an interesting beer this, and I'm glad that I was able to return to this brewery at some point soon. Like I said, the other two IPAs were recommended to me by someone that was watching. I couldn't get those at the time, but this has definitely been a very nice beer to try in the meantime, so I hope that you've enjoyed my take on this one. So yeah, let's leave it at that for this. This one is the Bjällra, a 6% kind of New England hazy type IPA from Wapnö Gårdbryggeri, just a little bit outside of Halmstad in Halland County here in the south of Sweden. A very interesting beer, and cool to return to this brewery. So once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Wapnö Gårdbryggeri. We'll be returning to these guys at some point fairly soon, and as I say, hopefully it's some of the IPAs and the stout that we review fairly soon. Till the next time, it's landed just now, and I'll catch you guys later. Make sure you check out this beer if you want a nice kind of punchy New England type IPA. Slàinte, skål, cheers.